Hey Sabrina, hey Jake, hey Corey. Good to see you. Come on in. Wow, Corey, it's like blindingly bright right there. Love that. The white with the light from the window.
Yes,
It'll look good. It'll wake me
bright
up.
day today.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Hey everybody. So we're gonna jump in right away. Most of you don't know Melissa because she's new to the Sold Out Coach Club community. Um, but she broke the sold out record because up until now, Casey Patey had the sold out record. Before that, Andrew Connell had this sold out record, but Casey Patey had the sold out record for a couple weeks, which was, hey, in 2 weeks and 2 days, she sold out her first cohort. And then Melissa joined Sold Out Coach Club, and in our welcome call, her first question after like orientation was like, "Hey, I accidentally sold 2.5 cohorts. What do I do now?" And so it was like, okay, new record. Now, obviously, it's a lot more complicated than that, but I asked Melissa to just jump on and just share, so we could kind of just reverse engineer, like, kind of what led to the most recent success, and then what happens from here. So, Melissa, I know you, but nobody else does. Well, not maybe not nobody, but you're still new to the group. So, why don't we start by just giving a little context on your background and your business? And so, yeah, would you tell us a bit about who you are and who you help?
Sure. So I am Melissa Broughton. I, among many other things, am an accountant. So not the most, I don't know, I guess what people would say is not the most exciting thing. And what brought me to this group is that I, in August of last year, launched an online course allowing essentially stay-at-home moms and dads to launch their own bookkeeping practices. So we were a little bit unique with our own practice in that in bookkeeping alone, our first year in business, we kind of muddled our way to close to $1 million.
Wow.
And it
And
was
that
a
was
lot of,
well, let's mention real quick, Melissa, that was a while ago too. You've done this for
yeah,
a
that
long
was
time. So,
2017.
yeah, that's great.
So I am just such a huge, I don't know, a huge believer in paying it forward. And also I've hit the point um, in my career where it was just time for, not to be cliche with the word pivot, but it really was just time for me to pivot. I felt like I was I didn't feel challenged every day. So we launched the course. It's been fantastic. There's, of course, the low level offer, and then there's a mid level offer, and then kind of the third tier um, was to promote a coaching program, which I got really excited about. I mean, to be able to work with people on like in a group setting or one-on-one setting, awesome. The person who I had worked with, who had kind of helped me design or I don't know, produce, let's say, the course, really pushed for a very specific three level, like three different coaching packages. And we had had a little bit of success. I, at one point, hired a salesperson that did not work.
Hmm.
So it really meant that all of the phone calls were up to me. And I started feeling like every call was just different. And so there was no way that I would ever be able to train over calls for me. And I went onto Amazon and I found John's book, and I read it. I read it on a flight to, I don't know, somewhere. And it was so easily digestible, and it just totally made sense, and it kind of made me yeah, I'll be honest. I'll say it made me very excited for my next call. And so, and that was
Good.
just the start. So I had a call, and the person, ironically, on the other end of the phone told me I was nosy and had no right to ask the questions I was asking.
Oh,
So
okay.
indicator, right, but indicator that like not a good fit, and you move on. Everybody's not going to be a good fit. I got told
Yeah.
yesterday I was too perky. So it just happens. We're not everybody's people. But
My
uh
people, Melissa. It's okay.
but I reached out to you, John, or I don't know, I probably got an email maybe from Brittany about I bet you have, Brittany. I got an email about like more services that you offered. Now it was interesting because my husband and I went to like a business strategy session, and it was pretty expensive. We had to apply to get in. It was a couple months ago, and when we got there, there really wasn't much like there wasn't much meat or much information,
Mm,
but what it was a weekend that became an upsell for, oh, you paid $5,000 to come to this. Well, if you pay $45,000, then, and I only say that because it was such a turnoff to me to not be giving, like, there was no substance to what they gave us before.
yeah.
There
Yeah,
was
Jake just in the
substance.
chat called that the timeshare of the
And
yeah.
I'm there
And just
now.
to be clear, that's not just to make sure this is super clear for the recording. You're not talking about my
No,
conversation with you. It's somebody
no,
else. Yeah,
not at
yeah.
all. So somebody else. So, but
Just want to make
I,
sure that's super clear. Yeah,
yeah, super clear. Sorry,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I say that because I was super hesitant when I read your book,
Mhm.
that I didn't want people to feel like, okay, so you just spent X amount of money on something and now I'm trying to upsell you. I really
Yeah.
believe in being of service to people. And that was one of the challenges that I had repeatedly when I was on calls with people, is it was like, well, where's the balance between, I can tell them exactly what they need to do, but there is a part of self-discovery that needs to happen.
Mhm.
So went to the, I don't know, first group, but before the first group, I
Well,
jumped.
yeah. Let me. Why don't I chime in
Sorry.
right there and just put just because now this is where we meet, right? So I'll chime in
Yes,
there.
this
So
is where we meet.
I am also curious if you remember like what you searched on Amazon to find my book because uh candidly like you're sort of like the dream case for any one of us that has this kind of business where like you and I had never met, no idea who I was. You had a problem, you went on Amazon, you searched for it, you found my book, bought my book, then you took the Smart Scan assessment, and
Yeah.
the Smart Scan assessment is how you qualified for a call, booked a call with me. So first time I talked to you is when we jump on the call and you're like, I've got the printed cheat sheet from the book right here. I've been using it for all my calls. It's working. And I have a couple questions. And then by the end of the call, it's like, I actually use the serve call framework, which of course you also recognize the serve call method yourself because you now read the book, and so you like listen to that, and then at the end we're like, well, yeah, let's do it, let's join, and then on the call you join. So that's sort of like best case scenario in my business. Um, I'm curious if you remember what you explained already the problem you're trying to solve. I'm curious if you remember what you searched when you went on Amazon to find the book. Do you know?
Questions for coaches.
Questions for coaches. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So really at that point, what I was looking for was that I had, I think for the GoPro, we had 4.
Okay.
So I had been told that I needed to have 25,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt like 4 was, everybody was kind of at different phases. So I was looking for more of a framework so that I could keep everybody on the same page, but still keep them engaged. So
Yeah.
questions for coaches is what I looked up.
Excellent. Thank you. That's helpful research for me.
Sure.
Then yeah, so from my perspective, you took the Smart Scan assessment, you qualified, you booked a call with me, we jumped on the call. You maybe also like replied to a hand raiser. I think I had some like context from you from a previous email, but that's how we got on the call. Uh, um, and then between that serve call and the first like the welcome call for your cohort is really when you started getting immediate results. So I'm curious if you remember what strategic changes you made after that first call that unlocked that, because you had mentioned before how you had someone on your team or a consultant who was saying, hey, you need these 3 different packages, you need 25 people, and it's really complicated. And so what changes did you make after that first conversation?
So I went back to everyone that I had had a call with for the last, I think I went back 3 months. So not, I
Okay.
mean, to be fair, I probably do 5 calls a week. So I went back through all of those people. I sent, I guess what was a hand raiser email, although I didn't realize that's what it was at the time, to find out who was interested in having a call, and I just said, we've made some
Mm-hmm.
changes to our partnership program. Shoot me an email if you want to jump on a call just so I can walk you through them. And of the, I don't know, of the 50, I had 14 that said, let's talk. Now, some of these people had been incredibly skeptic.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing that's fair to market is when you market to stay-at-home moms and dads, you don't always get stay-at-home moms and dads. You also get, I talk to a lot of older retired people
Oh,
who
interesting.
are incredibly skeptical. Even though they found my course on Facebook, they're incredibly skeptical on anything to do with the internet. So I knew I had those people mixed in. I mean, I could remember most of the people that I talked
Yeah.
to because I kept pretty good notes, because I thought the objective was to do like 3 calls to close a sale and to gather as much information, because that's the old way of selling, right? Gather as much information as you can so you can fill their pain point. And so I had great notes on these people. Every call was a yes. However, the one thing, and just by going through your three
Yeah.
steps, the one thing though that I will say is the big change was prior we had the three packages.
Yeah.
The top package was 12,000, the second package was 8, and the third package, the lowest package, was 5. And now we condensed it down to a shorter time frame, which I didn't think people would get excited about, but it was interesting. Like, I just trusted the process. You're the master in this case, so I'm gonna trust the process. And the shorter time frame was the top the top reason why people said yes. The second reason, because I asked him, I said, well, what changed for you now versus
right.
just out of curiosity. And the second, of course, was the price, because we took it and we put it all into one coaching package where it became a yes or no choice, and it was $2,000.
Okay,
So
that's good. Let me chime in there and just kind of
sure.
When we talked, you'd already been selling this program, but it was like that there were 3 price points, and you said one was 12,000. Was it the 9-month program? I want to say there was
the 9-month program was 12,000, and
yeah,
we had a whole bunch of things in there.
Bells and whistles.
We had like tons of bells and whistles that I thought people would get super excited about.
Yeah. So then when we talked about it, I mean, so first of all, I want to break the fourth wall for a minute and say that when you're on a serve call with a client, like, your goal is not to give them homework, right? That's one of the things I would really encourage you to and warn people about. However, when you can share a framework that causes someone to change their belief, or to change, or to sort of have an unlock of simplicity, that's excellent. So in my conversation with Melissa, when I was like, what have you tried so far? What have you tried before today? She's like listing out all these things. I'm like, okay, well, what I found is that if you take a longer program and you commit to a shorter time frame, but just with a clear deliverable, like a 60-day program that's focused on like launching your business as a bookkeeper in this case, and you have a one fixed price, it's what I find is it's dramatically easier to sell. And actually, I had this experience myself, because when I first started selling high ticket, originally I had an offer that was $5,000 a year, and that was my standard offer. And there was kind of different ways I packaged it, and it sold okay. But when I switched to having a $5,000 90-day program, my conversion rate tripled. But I was like, wait a minute, this is 90 days instead of a year. Like, I thought that was less. But the problem was, it was I don't know what I'm doing a year from now, and so it's hard for me to commit to anything that's a year from now. And B, the idea of going like, oh, Matt, wow, 60 or 90 days from now, I can achieve this goal. That's a win. I'm really buying like that future state. And the program's just how you get there. So Melissa, it's interesting in your case that you actually have sort of an A/B split test, that you have all these people that you met with the old offer who said no, or said, I don't know, right? And then you circle back to them and just said, hey, we've changed a couple things. Can we talk? And then you were able to close the sale. So so the new offer then, is it 60 days at 2,000?
Yep, 60 days at 2,000, and we make one promise: they'll have 5 clients by the time.
That's amazing. And then so how many sales have you made for that so far?
16.
16. And when did you start that offer? When did you start selling that offer?
2 weeks ago now.
Okay. Yeah. That's pretty good. So well done. So I love that you have the A/B split test, because I teach these things of saying like, hey, this is easier, but like you have it, like, where you're like, I tried the old way, it didn't work, and then I changed the offer, went back to the same people, and it worked. So that's great. Another thing I want to point out, that I think something you did really well long before you got here, right? Long before we met, was you have so much clarity in who you help and how you help them and why it matters, right? So you and I have talked about this, how you and your husband being in this business together gave you the freedom to be more involved with your kids, right? And so it became like, all of a sudden it's like, hey, like this clarity of helping busy moms and dads, so a very clear identity, busy moms and dads, and then a very clear intent, which is to build a bookkeeping business so you can spend more time with your family or more time with your kids, right? And the way that you approach, because I know this because we've dug in a little bit deeper into it, the way you teach, like, systematically, just the math of like, okay, here's how to get to the point where once you have 25 clients, you're making good money, and you're free, essentially. So I love how formulaic, repeatable it is, and the fact that you've done this yourself in your own business. And one more thing I want to highlight about thing you've done well. A lot of people who run agencies have the same problem you've run into, which you've turned into an opportunity, which is like someone comes to work with you and they learn a skill and they get to a certain point where they know that skill enough, but they're like, I'll just go do this on my own. And so I think you mentioned that was part of the inspiration for this was you've had
Yep.
bookkeepers who worked for you, and then once they got skilled enough working for you, they just launched their own bookkeeping business. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So how'd you
so
process that? Yeah.
well, I just kind of surrendered rather than resisting it and rather than being, because I could have gotten incredibly full bitter, like all kinds of things. One of the
Yeah.
things that's interesting in California is non-competes are not enforceable. Not a
Mm.
lot of employees know that. So there is literally nothing I can do to stop an employee from leaving with their book of clients
Yeah.
or all of my clients. And it put me in a place of I either have to not grow, which I didn't want to do, or I just have to be fine with that. Occasionally I may have a bookkeeper that may leave and take a whole
Yeah.
bunch of clients with them, and that didn't work for me. And I thought, well, what if I completely resist what I'm the most afraid of, and I support them, all of these little bookkeepers out there, in starting their own businesses. And that was really where the idea from the course came from. And it was funny to me because once I made the decision to totally surrender to it, like everything fell into place. And there's
I
been
love that.
um it's really been very gratifying.
That's incredible. I love that you shared that because it's just, I worked with a lot of entrepreneurs over the years who I've seen have the opposite approach, which is that something starts to go wrong in their plan and they kind of like hold on to it tighter. They have this fear-based approach of like NDAs or non-competes or threats of like what happens if you leave, or even just when somebody does leave, all of a sudden it's like, let's talk bad about them and make it clear like they're the enemy now because they're not part of the team. And so it would be really easy for you to fall into that trap because a lot of entrepreneurs do. And so I love that you just focused on I mean, I'm sure there was probably days where you were like not so enlightened about it, but there was a point you got to where you accepted that, like you said, and embraced it and surrendered. It reminds me actually of the surrender, this whole idea of like accept the things I cannot change, right? Encourage things you cannot. And that one of the things you can't change is the fact that people are going to come into your business, they're going to learn these skills, and they're going to want to take those skills through wherever's good for them, right? I have a friend who's got um a therapy practice, and he's kind of running the same thing where they have therapists who junior therapists will come in with them to work underneath them, and they get to a certain point where they've got all their clients, and then it's like, why are you under the umbrella again? Like the therapists start to question, they're like, well, I could just go do this on my own, I guess. And so I love that you just embraced that and said, okay, well, then I'm going to help you do it. And and it's already turned into a good business model for you. So that's incredible.
Well, the
Yeah,
interesting part, and I'll just say this,
please.
my youngest son asked me, why do you want people to work for you that don't want to work for you? I mean, it was just this, like, as only a 14-year-old can ask, like, duh. And it was such a total
Wow.
aha moment. And yeah, so no, don't want anybody. Now, what's interesting is the coaching program has turned into an excellent resource for me to find very qualified candidates that
Oh yeah.
have gone through the process and kind of go, I don't know that I actually want to own my own practice.
Mm,
So there's all kinds of different
that's interesting.
opportunities that have presented themselves.
So do you see yourself hiring then some alumni of your coaching program for your
Oh,
bookkeeping agency?
absolutely, absolutely,
That's cool.
absolutely.
They basically paid for their own training, which is kind of a
They
benefit
did.
too.
It's
Um,
wonderful.
yeah.
We have laughed about that a little bit.
Yeah. That actually does remind me. Drew Renner, he paid to go through Sold Out Coach Club, and then I hired him as a coach to help in the community. And then his coaching business kind of blew up to the point where then ended up going to do work full time in his own coaching business. But then him and I did the math and realized that we paid each other almost exactly the same amount of money. So like it's like, but we all gained from it. So similar kind of idea. So tell us more about how you think about your business now, because you've got the group coaching program over here. I mean, in a minute we'll come back to the long-term plans of the group coaching program. For now, I just want to focus on today. You still run the bookkeeping agency, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my husband and I are partners in an accounting firm.
Okay.
He runs the tax side of things. I run the bookkeeping side of things. Our oldest son just as in last week, got out of the Marine Corps and is getting his license for taxes.
Okay.
We'll see how that goes, and is going to come to work with dad. Again, we'll see how that goes.
Hire yourself a tax marine. There's a whole
Right,
campaign there.
right.
Yeah.
So yes, we still very much run a very thriving accounting practice. We service on the bookkeeping side of things, we service just under 250 clients on a
Wow.
monthly basis.
Where are they
We
located?
get
Does that
we're
matter?
in Sacramento, California, but we service clients across the country.
That's great. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's I wrote, and let's see, last year I wrote 2 books. I don't know, we make time for things that are important
Yeah.
to us.
That's good. Yeah. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So I want to think through here where to take this next. Oh yeah, I'm wondering if there's anything you can show us. Just I know it was a really rapid sales sequence for you to, kind of follow up with people. But do you have anything you could show us and kind of like share your screen as in terms of like either emails you sent or any sort of like I don't know what you had in terms of like pitch deck or payment form or anything like that.
I have one. Well, that was okay. So
yes.
can I answer? There were a couple questions that popped up. Can I answer those really fast?
Yeah. Okay, live Q&A at the end, but I understand in the chat if it's relevant, you can answer now. That's really fine.
So totally relevant. So the original coaching packages that I was promoting or selling were either 9 months for the $12,000 program, 6 months for the $8,000 program, or 3 months for the $5,000 program. And the challenge that I had brought up to you, John, when we first talked, it was funny because I thought my challenge was something different than it actually was. So I was looking for ways to better explain the 3 different packages because I felt like when I was on the phone with people, it became this whole word salad of me talking a lot to explain the packages. And I could almost hear their eyes like glazed over, and then nothing would happen. It was like I talked too much, nothing would happen. So
yeah. Do you remember do you remember the metaphor I used when we talked about that? About why to change?
Tell me. I'm sure it was brilliant.
Oh well, I don't know about that, but we talked about the idea. I asked you. I said if you had to go meet with a heart surgeon tomorrow, and he asked you, do you want a quadruple bypass, or do you want a pacemaker, or do you want to go to the gym more often?
Right.
What would you say?
Like, you're like, you're the professional.
You're the professional. You tell me. Like, don't make me make that choice, right? And so that's what I made the point that what you were doing was really putting the burden on them to make a choice that's yours because you're the expert. You're the heart surgeon in this case, right? You just need to tell them what they need, and they just need to say yes.
Yeah, and there's also a downside to somebody staying in the training, like in that cozy training zone for too long. Because when somebody's brand new and they raise their hand and they say yes, it's a really short amount of time before you lose their interest. So if we're like taking them and making them go through my program, no matter how awesome it is, for 9 months, they're over it.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Well, actually, I just met with this week who's like having me come back and do some training to his people because they have a program and he's like, we run into this problem where they sell a certification program for coaches, and they were like, we have coaches now who pay for a couple years of training that aren't yet making money with it. They're like, what do we do? And so I'm coming in to do some training for them, and it's like, yeah, you got to get people out of that just learning state into taking action at some point. That's good. Were there something else you wanted to share there? I know you had.
No, those were the big things. I'm just trying to look for my very impressive what I have.
Well,
it's one sheet.
Yeah.
I'll say it right there. It's one sheet.
Well, and actually, let me actually ask a question here. The way you're describing these calls, these sound like phone calls. Were these primarily phone calls or Zoom?
It's 50-50.
Okay, cool. Are you still using the Zurb call method on phone?
Oh yeah, of course. Why not?
Okay. Yeah.
Am I not supposed to?
Exactly. Answer.
Because that would make for some really awkward calls if I wasn't supposed to. I mean, I did it wrong.
You're doing it great, Melissa. I just wanted to illustrate what I thought you were saying there because I think a lot of people feel kind of there's a balance of people sometimes feel help like the structure helps them and they feel kind of trapped in it of like I have to do a 45-minute Zoom call, and it's like sometimes I do it over text. Sometimes I do it over the phone. Like, just like sometimes I do it over a lunch meeting. Like you just got the same structure works in different formats is actually what I wanted to illustrate. So you're doing great.
Yeah, thank you. I think when you're passionate about what you do, it
Yeah.
becomes really it's just easy to I do feel like I'm able to be of service. It's not about me trying to get something. You know, I talked to somebody
Yeah.
yesterday and he was in a position where he had just lost his job. And I said, we need to have a very honest conversation. This is not a you're going to get rich overnight. This
Yeah.
is here's what you can realistically expect in the first month. Here's the second month. You'll get there, but I really want you to think about it.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
So, um,
Good.
as far as though, what's interesting, as far as Zoom, and you talk about the AB, what test
The A/B split
studies or
test.
whatever you
Yeah.
said, every single Zoom that I've had has closed. Of the
Okay.
phone calls,
Interesting.
it's about a 50-50.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So 100% close rate on Zoom so far since you've implemented the new offer. That's interesting. Okay. Would you share your screen and show us what you got?
That's,
Nothing, no need for anything fancy. Just want to know what you, just the real stuff of like how you close these sales, what the communication was with the offer.
okay. So will I share my screen? Technology is sometimes challenging,
Well, that's encouraging to anybody in the group who's,
right?
doesn't want to let the technology become a distraction.
So I have it's one flyer. It lists out um, everything
Great.
except for the price because we will be increasing the price as the program goes on. Uh,
Great.
we did decide to add 3 more spots to June, so we do still have some openings for June, but as of last week on Friday, we were sold out for June and halfway closed with July.
Okay. So tell
Uh,
me again, how many total spots will you have in May, June, and July? Because I think you're starting
yeah,
a cohort each
so
month right now, right?
um, we have 5 that I'm doing one-on-one with because I didn't feel like it was fair for them to have to wait. So I'm doing one-on-ones with 5 of them. It also
Okay.
allowed me to kind of use them as test subjects to turn something that was, 9 months into 60 days and to figure out what's useful and what's not useful. So we have 5 this month. We
But those
have,
5 are 101. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, we have 5 that
Okay.
are one-on-one. Um, I have 5 in June and I opened it up for 3 more spots.
Okay. So total of 8 in June, ideally.
Yeah, a total of 8 in June, ideally. And in July, I have 5 already sold, and I'll probably open up 3 more spots.
Okay. Yeah. So the plan is for June and July that these will be groups, though, right? Awesome.
Yes,
So
yes.
so
Everything forward is groups because this
great.
one-on-one
It's a lot of work.
it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Um, but it does give you a chance to test out the material. And then so because it's a 60-day program, basically each month you're starting a cohort and ending a cohort. Is that right?
Yep. So
Okay.
they're every other month, or every month, a new one is starting essentially.
Okay. Great. And then every month you're going to have one ending too.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So at most you'll have like 2 cohorts at a time.
Correct.
Yeah. And then so right now the goal is 8 people. Is it still $2,000 each for now for July
It
and
is.
June? Okay,
It
great.
is.
So this is your primary offer. Is that did you share this before, or after, or during a call?
I share it during the call.
Okay,
I'm totally transparent.
great,
Like the first thing I tell them is how long it lasts and what it costs. And
great.
I
Okay,
just kind of approach it from the standpoint of those are the questions that are going to stick in your mind. And if I don't just tell you right now, you're going to be thinking about that and you're not going to listen to
yeah,
anything else I say.
okay,
So,
yeah, yeah, great. And then
um,
have you beyond this? Can you either show us or tell us about the email you used to invite people to reconnect with you on a call?
Um, it was really simple. We
Okay.
talked previously about, you being part of one of our coaching at that point. We had 3,
Mhm.
um, and we've made some changes to it. Shoot me an email if you want to talk about the changes.
Great. So super simple hand raiser.
It was
Love
like
it.
it was 3 sentences.
Yeah.
Now, what's even more interesting is we've applied. So I've been using your method with my students.
Hmm.
Um, as a way for them to build out their book of business. And
You
so
mean, yeah. What do you mean? You mean like you're teaching them to do serve calls?
well, not necessarily teaching them to do serve calls, but teaching them the same kind of pricing model that you did with the group.
Amazing. Amazing.
So if let's say as a bookkeeper, the lowest price point that I really teach them is $99 a month
Hmm.
for, X amount of accounts that you're taking care of for a client. So what they want is to have those 5 clients as quickly as possible, because once you kind of have your first 5, I don't know, there's like a different swagger. You have more confidence. You
The
know you can
bookkeeper
do this.
swagger. Yeah, that's
It's a
good.
bookkeeper swagger, right? This is a real
Yeah.
business. And $99 a month for bookkeeping is a pretty awesome offer. It's
Yeah.
low enough that, and we're really specific with what we do, but it's low enough that it's like, wow, this is a good deal, but not so low that it seems too good to be true, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've been kind of working on your first 5 clients are $99, and
Okay.
they're having so much success. So it's carried on into
That's awesome. I
my
love that.
program as well.
Yeah, I love that. I think I've told you before. Maybe I've told you, maybe I haven't. But a lot of my personal pride in my work, I take in my not just the success of my clients, but the success of my grand clients. So it sounds like my grand clients are doing pretty well over there with the
Your
5
grand
clients. And
clients are
yeah,
doing great.
that's awesome. Yeah. So okay, great. So this is it. I mean, that's really the whole offer. Question: have you taken this offer yet? Because what we're talking about so far has been people who you already met with previously who had said no. Basically, your rejects.
Yep.
You've taken this offer. And have you yet taken this offer to any new audience or any other leads?
Yeah. So of all of the people, 3 of them are as of Friday. So one said yes on Friday. I had a call with her on Friday. She said yes, and then 2 were yeses
Great.
yesterday.
Okay, and then how did she get on the call? Like, what did you do to kind of promote that?
So I sent I kind of handpicked just a few random people through. I went through the A's of my database, and I picked the top 5 people who had
Yeah.
gone through both of the training courses that we offer, and I sent them an
Mm,
email that was super similar. It's 2
yeah.
sentences. It was, we've got this amazing partnership program. I'd love to talk to you about it if you're looking for more.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
I
actually, I
don't,
forgot about that. I was just looking back at my notes. I think you have something like 2,000 students who've gone through courses
we
before
do,
for you, right?
we do.
Yeah. Okay. So,
So,
yeah,
so I have
so many leads in there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I have this database of people that have already bought from me that are eager to buy more. It's almost like giving them permission to say yes. So it's figuring out, when they're ready or
Yeah.
if it's a good fit for them.
That's
Um,
great.
So I sent that message out to 25, and I had, I think, 9 responded back and scheduled appointments. And I've had 5 of those appointments so far. Of the 5, 3 have said yes.
Yeah. So just thinking through those numbers real quick, what that means is that I want to illustrate this for anybody who's listening to this that's thinking, because that's obviously what that's the first thing that kicks in. You haven't yet gone big yet. You've only gone to a small list of people who you met with in the past who had said no to coaching. And then you've gone to a handful of handpicked customers. Um, but yeah, I mean, the success you've had so far has really just been from, I want to say if my math is right, a total of maybe 50 people you reached out to between those two groups. Is that about right?
I think it's been less than that.
Yeah, that's encouraging. That's great. So thank you for sharing that. You can stop sharing your screen now, unless you have something else you want to show off.
I don't have anything else I want to
Okay,
show.
that's great. Yeah, no, I love that. So,
So I think the big thing that I learned, or that I've learned really quickly, is if you're not getting any takers, yes, I absolutely believe that the hand raiser email is like the magic. But if you're not getting any takers, you're not reaching out to a big enough audience.
mhm, yeah, yeah. Well, tell me more about what you mean by that, because you're reaching out to a really small audience. So you think the difference is, what do you
Well,
mean?
but I'm
Yeah.
reaching out to a small audience that, that has already purchased, so they
Hmm.
already trust me, right?
Yeah.
So if this were to be cold, I would think my numbers, I mean, my minimum email campaign would probably be 1,000.
Hmm. Yeah. I think that might be right, but I just want to. But again, the numbers
But
you're looking at here, it's a lot
I
less than
don't
that.
think this would
Yeah,
work in that scenario. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, and Melissa, I know you're new. Like you're starting step one this week officially, even though you're already
Yeah.
sold out. But yeah, part of the numbers that I usually teach there is usually you want 100 warm leads for your first, to get your first 10 high quality serve calls, to get your first 5 paying clients. So these are obviously more than warm. They're hot leads if they bought something from you before. So I think one of the takeaways I just want to illustrate there is if you have customers who bought anything from you, that's one of the reasons why I love writing books. This is a poorly kept secret about books. Books don't make any money.
No,
They're
they
not
don't.
really good at creating cash, but they're great at creating customers. So one of the reasons why I like creating books is because once someone has purchased a product from you of any kind, they're 5 times more likely to make a purchase than someone who's never bought something from you. If it's specifically a book, and if they've read it, which that's a lower percentage of people who buy it and then actually read it, but then there's a lot of built-in authority where they spend a lot of time with you. They've kind of you've seen inside my brain, and you liked what you saw, and you didn't run screaming. So that's a good thing. Um, yeah. So let's talk real quick, and then I'd love to open it up for other people to ask questions. So
Sure.
think about your questions. Everybody's in the room live, if you would. But I'd love to ask then next to kind of. I'm curious what you're current thinking about what happens next. Are you going to continue with the once a month cohorts? Is that the plan for now?
That's the plan for, yes.
Yeah.
So I actually would love to have our core bookkeeping business only take on new clients that have like very specific work that needs to be
Mm.
done, and then to be able to refer them out to other bookkeepers. So I
Oh
really
yeah, because you've
would
got
like,
leads. Yeah.
yeah, so I really
Great
would
clients.
like this to be what I do for, whoever knows for as long, for
Yeah.
whoever knows how long. I mean, there's all
Yeah.
kinds of benefits, and of course I've run the numbers and it totally makes sense to do this.
Yeah.
I will say that we did our first, I was very nervous about the price jump,
Hmm.
um but we did that and we had one taker for August, so
Okay. So what's the price jump in August?
4,000.
All right, you're doing the double double. I love it. So are you gonna do 10 clients at 4, or are you gonna keep it to 8, or what are you thinking?
No, I'm going to try and do 10.
All right.
Well, I'm not
Oh,
going to say try. I hate it when people say that to me. Yes, 10
yeah.
spots.
Yes. You know what Yoda says about that, right?
There is no try.
Exactly. There's only two or do not.
I got
Um,
a nod from Jake because I knew Star
yeah.
Wars.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, so exactly. So you're gonna do a double double. I mean, you're kind of easing into it by going straight from 5 to 8 clients at 2,000. But then, like you said, you've already got one person say yes at the new price of 4,000 in August,
Yes.
right? Amazing. Love that. Amazing. All right. So then long term, have you thought through like what you think then like long term price point is for this type of program?
I would love to be able to get to 10
Okay.
per, per person, and to still keep it at the 60-day program. And there's so many reasons why that 60-day time frame makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially with what you said, like I don't know what I'm going to be doing in 9 months.
Yeah. So one
Um,
of the things I want to illustrate about your program there's a lot of these out there. Not all coaching programs are this, but your program is categorized as what I would call a business in a box,
yeah.
where there's a lot of programs like that. I think most people are familiar with even like if you go and sign up with a real estate brokerage to become a realtor, like that's a business in a box. And there's a lot of these things out there where you can go. I mean, sometimes there's situations like Bo Eckstein in our community, like his is literally it's like you go buy a franchise. It's like it's very much the business in a box, kind of extreme example of that. But a business in a box program is essentially someone buying, an income stream, a career path, a purpose, a profession. There are a lot of business in a box programs, and they typically do sell really well. And so I do think, Melissa, that as you start to scale this program, especially as you get more and more of those case studies and testimonials, this is definitely a program that I could see you sometime next year charging $10,000 per person or $1,000 a month for 12 months as kind of like your two primary payment options, and that worked really well. I'd be interested to see if the lead flow slows down at some point. At some point, like, maybe you do just one group at a time every 60 days. But if you can keep up the lead flow like you're doing right now, there's no reason why you couldn't deliver 10 clients at $10,000 every month, which that's $100,000 a month. I mean, that's very simple math. That's really beautiful math for group coaching programs. So you're on the right path for sure. I would love to open it up now and just say, like, anybody here's here live, raise your hand if you have a question for Melissa either about how she did this. Be selfish here. in terms of like anything you want to learn from her experience, you want to apply to your own business as you're thinking about your own coaching program, or something she did that you're just curious about. Of course, you can raise your hand. But would love to know if you have any questions about, or what questions you have about how to apply this to scaling your own Sold Out Coaching business. And then, Mike, why don't you go first?
I think this is less of a question, more of a curiosity to maybe everyone, but whoever wants to jump in. I just find it very fascinating. Melissa, just for my context, I'm very new to the business side. I've done the John's program, but hearing you say you would say the price up front and the length of the program, and then also John, with what you teach, is, unless I have it wrong, like almost the opposite in the serve call.
I knew it's only my first week.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with either. And I just also am like,
yeah,
I'm just very curious of thoughts around that. And when, I guess maybe the question is, when is a good time to do that? When is a good time to not do that? And I'm just like thinking of my own process as well. And of course, John, I'm wrong with you, but
yeah, it's a great question here, which is really, you're asking like, wait a minute, when do we say price and length of the program? I mean, obviously those are the two, maybe not obviously. So those are the two questions that probably should come up on every single call. Like they don't, like if they don't come up, that I would be concerned. Like I've had someone before who's like, yes, I'm in. And I'm like, you don't actually know the price. You don't know how long it is. I'm like, that's not a real yes, probably. They're just excited. So they are the most important questions to make sure you answer. What I teach is really just about the sequencing of things. And so like, I think specifically as Melissa continues to raise her price, it's going to be more important to save the price for the final step. Because right now, Melissa, where you've just gone from someone who's positioned, they've already seen an offer before that was $12,000. And then now you're like, hey, I have this new program that's $2,000. That's great price positioning, because now they're like, oh, or price anchoring rather, where they're like, oh my gosh, I'm in, right? Totally makes sense. I think once your program is 10,000, I wouldn't lead with that, right? What I teach here, trying to think if I can pull up a visual real quick for this. It's in the book, Serve to Sell, actually, but is what this comes down to is the objections. So the reason why at the end of a serve call, I teach that you should ask someone if they want to join without giving them all the details and let them share you their questions, is because we want to find out where they're at in the objection hurdles they have to overcome. And so, I mean, I don't have it handy, I guess, a copy with the right illustration, but so there are 3 hurdles you have to overcome objection-wise, right? So the first is credibility, which is, do you actually know what you're talking about? But theoretically, they probably jump the hurdle before they jump the call with you. The second is believability, which is, yeah, you can help somebody, but can you help me, right? Can you help me in my unique specific situation with my unique special circumstances that are not like anyone else in the world, and I'm different and I'm special, and is your program going to work for me, right? Believability. That's a lot of what a serve call does, is it overcomes the believability objections for help to get people feel like you believe in them, they believe in themselves. Scarcity is the last hurdle to overcome, which scarcity is it worth my precious money and time? So what happens is sometimes someone says, okay, what happens is sometimes you get someone to think about scarcity prematurely. So like right now, for example, if I were to say like, hey, there's like there's a flight school program to become a pilot for like $5,000, you want to join? It's like, well, I'm not actually thinking about the hurdle yet. I don't even know. Do I want to become a pilot? Is this flight school actually legit? I don't even have a plane. Like, how does this work exactly? Like, I have so many questions before I even can actually make the decision on is that price worth my precious money and time, that it becomes sort of like a traffic jam in your head, I guess is what I'm saying. Where like if you introduce scarcity too soon. So what's important is that you find out if someone's already passed the credibility hurdle and the believability hurdle. And the desire is sort of like the pre-hurdle, so to speak, which is like, do they actually want it, right? Do I even want to become a pilot in the first place? It's like more the first question, not even if it's a good deal. It's like, I don't care if it's a good deal. Do I want to become a pilot? I don't know. Let me think about that. So you have to cross the, open the gate of desire, and then you have to jump the credibility and believability, and then ultimately the scarcity hurdle. And so that is why I recommend that you ask, would you like to join? And then you give them a chance to have a client-led close. Whereas some people will say like, yeah, I'm in, what's the price? And you're like, great, you're already at the scarcity hurdle. Amazing. But sometimes someone will say, sometimes will actually ask a question about the price, but you can tell that's not what they're thinking. They're like, well, I don't know the details. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you want to know? And they're like, I mean, I guess I want to know what does it cost. I'm like, okay, well, here's the price. You know, is that something you can do? It's like, well, let me think about it. Is this going to work for me? You're like, okay, you're still wrestling through believability. Let's focus on that. Let's make sure you cross that hurdle before we really spend any time trying to work out payment plans. Right? Because somebody's like, I don't know if this will work for me. It's like, well, we can do 10 monthly payments. I'm like, oh, you didn't hear me. I'm stuck on believability. Right? And so a lot of the serve call process is just understanding, is someone stuck on credibility? Are they stuck on believability? Are they stuck on scarcity? Or is the fundamental issue desire? So like, for example, I had a couple of people who said no to joining my last cohort. The specific reason was like, I don't want to build a coaching program right now. And you're like, that's actually a desire thing, which is like the desire is not there. Like, it doesn't really matter how good my program is. They're like, if I was going to do it, I would do your program. But I don't really want to do a coaching program right now. Like, okay, well then we haven't even crossed the desire threshold. So that's how I think about it. But I also like, Mike, I'd love to know, I guess, if you have any like follow-up questions or thoughts to that, or and then I'd love Melissa for you to chime in just based on your experience there. But yeah, Mike, what do you think?
No follow-up questions. I mean, that's where I was thinking it was going to, because I do remember that portion of our program very well.
Cool.
And so I just was curious if you answered everything I had. I was just curious of your thoughts around
Yeah.
it. And it all makes sense.
Thank you for asking. Melissa, I know that's what I just shared is probably something that in the book you haven't heard in much detail. So I'm curious, kind of, I guess I'm just curious your thoughts in response to that, based on what you're doing right now and what I just shared.
It absolutely makes sense. The first group that we got through, or our first 11 that we brought in, they were all used to, expecting a price point that was anywhere from $5,000 to $12,000. So just me saying, hey, it's now $2,000. Maybe that was enough to take them over the finish line. Moving forward, though, with what you guys, both of you have actually just said, I think I will, I'll do better at following the process and not trying to color outside of the lines, and save that for the end. Because if they don't have the desirability, then why even, like, I'll just wish them well. Like, why even go there? So,
Exactly.
I'll do better at following the questions.
Yeah, and just to confirm, like, how those hurdles look like for you and your target clients, like, step one is the desire of like, do I practice, right? Like, that's the question, really. Do I want to be my own bookkeeper? And then if they're like interested enough to be like, I think maybe I do, then it's like, okay, are you credible? Oh yeah, I mean, you've got a 7-figure bookkeeping agency that you built that allows you and your husband to work full time together, hire your son, and spend more time with your family. That's like the dream for your target client, right? And then it's like the believability is like, yeah, but can you help me? I mean, I'm not like you. I'm not in Sacramento, California. I'm on it, whatever. There's all kinds of reasons why people are like, I'm not like you. And then that's where a lot of the serve call is just helping people understand, like, well, yeah, but can you get 5 clients to pay $99? Yeah. Okay. That's believable, right? That's a believability tool that helps you go, that's all it takes to get started. And then once you get to the point where you have 25 clients, you're making good money from this. It's like, oh, that's exciting. I can do that. So that's the believability stuff. So then really, yeah, the final question then is just scarcity. Is like, is it worth my precious money and time? And in your case, because you're selling a business in a box program, you can actually share the math of like how much money you'll make from this, and then do the math of like how much it costs to do it. And so that's sort of best case scenario, because then there's clear ROI. Have you thought through a back-end offer for this yet, Melissa, in terms of what you're going to do for alumni? I know you mentioned a couple of them you might even hire. And yeah, I'm curious, have you thought through that yet in detail?
You and I kind of started to talk about that. No.
That's okay. Yeah, you don't need to, right? You mentioned that program, Jay called it the timeshare of the coaching community. A lot of those programs where you pay and you go to it and then it's an upsell thing, like that kind of stuff. It's also totally 100% fine if you just say, like, right now there is no upsell. It's like, this is it, and then at some point you figure out, what do they need, right? What's the real problem you're trying to solve?
So and again, I get very concerned with the failure to launch. So it's it's kind of a catch, because I want them to go out and know that their success is not, like, I'm not the one going out there and doing the stuff. I may be pointing them in the direction, but a lot of the questions that I even ask on my calls is, what could you be like, what are you doing right now that's causing you to have success? What is not causing you to have success, and what could you be doing differently? Those are the 3 questions that I start every call with.
Yeah.
They tell me the answers. So I just provide a little bit of guidance around it. Now, what I do have is a couple of them that have signed up for like cohorts that we don't even have open yet. So I have one lady who's going through the program now, and she's like, okay, so I'm going to do it on my own for 2 months, and then I want to come back in, I think she said October, and I'll pay whatever the price is. I would love to have the next level designed. I also just don't want to feel like I'm taking on too much and that I'm not able to provide quality for them.
That's good. Yeah. So I'd love to ask then if each person here, if you'd be willing to share your most useful takeaway. If you're watching the recording of this, if you would please share that in the chat, in the comments below. I'd love to know what is your most useful takeaway from this case study. So yeah, who would like to volunteer to share first? And I know there's a couple people off camera. If you're able to jump in the chat and share, or jump on camera to share, we appreciate that. But if not, I also understand. Life happens. You got to do stuff. Jake, you want to share yours?
Yeah, I'll share mine. I think for me, it's like you've been doing this for years, so this isn't an overnight success, but it to me reminds me that if you don't try different things, at least periodically, you could be leaving a lot of like benefits and like level ups on the table. So it's really cool to see like how fast of a by just changing a few things. I mean, it's not necessarily small changes. You're changing your program duration, all the stuff. But it's like you had all the pieces there and you just make this change. And then I think you're already seeing the benefits like really fast. So that's really cool.
That's good. That's a good takeaway. Thank you for sharing that, Jake. Mike, what about you?
I think just like the understanding the time frame of your clients and like what they want in terms of the length of the program and understanding like how much of that makes like a really big difference. And then of course you have to explore and figure that out. But seeing the effect of that and it reminds me also of like Joe Scholl's, how we talked about in the past, of how shorter was better for them. And so it's just fascinating to see all that.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I'll also share a couple of my takeaways. One of them is specifically that so much of this comes back to like, yes, offer design matters, but a lot of what was here is like the zeal, Melissa, that you bring to this comes from a very, very real clarity on who you help and how you help them and what the real problem is, right? Like that was here there before. You didn't have maybe all the language for like the stuff we're talking about, like promises and offers and all that kind of stuff, but you already came into this, you already clarified a lot of that, and that's a lot of the pre-work is just like, why does this matter? Like, why does your work matter? And I ask that not in like a defeatist question, but like in a, like a no, seriously, like, and so something that I know myself, it was a few years ago where I went through this process of getting. I mean, honestly, I like sort of like tried to leave the online education space at some point, like change industries, because I was just kind of like fed up with a lot of like influencers and the timeshare of market of coaching programs and like just a lot of the industry is just kind of sleazy and I kind of didn't like it. And then I had to get clear for me to get really excited about my business and refocus it on like, why does my work matter? And so for me, I had to get clear on like, what's the tragedy? And that became the question I ask is like, what's the trend? So this is something I don't always include in our core coaching program because it's sort of an advanced question that takes some heart searching. But part of the question I have is like, what's the tragedy that you're trying to prevent? And then if you could get really, really clear on that, that can make everything else laser focused. Melissa, I'd be wondering if you'd be willing to share what's the tragedy that you're trying to prevent in your business?
I think that there are a lot of people, no matter where we sit financially or in our careers, there are a lot of people that are out there that feel like they don't have other choices. And I remember when my boys were young and feeling like I was torn between going to work and earning money for my family and being with them or paying the ridiculous costs of daycare. And if I can help one person to not feel that pain, that frustration, I mean, it really gets me choked up even to talk about it, then I feel like I've done good in this world. And the feedback's been really, really amazing. So
That's so rewarding. Melissa, thank you for sharing your heart. and then just like that clarity you've got on the tragedy you're trying to prevent. That's why that exercise does take some heart searching, but once you get clear on it, everything else becomes so much easier to show up where you're like, I gotta text somebody on the phone. It's gonna be a little awkward. That's okay. I know what tragedy I'm here to prevent, right? Like everything else just becomes a lot easier once you get clarity on that. So thank you for sharing that, Melissa. Melissa, I'm wondering if actually you would share, just because we've just spent an hour kind of retracing your steps a bit. What's your most useful takeaway from like reflecting back on what you've done and thinking about what comes next? I'm curious what comes to mind as your takeaway from today.
So I'm going to go big and then small. The biggest takeaway is that there's so much in working with you to learn a new skill set, and the way that I'm still crying, sorry, and the way that you present it is not intimidating. I mean, there are definitely things like when Mike brought up, shouldn't price be at the end? Not that you phrased it that way, but yeah, it does make sense to leave price at the end. But it's just to follow the process. You make it very easy to follow the process. So for that, I thank you very much. But that was my big takeaway. The small takeaway is actually two things. So the small takeaway is a question I've been asking of, I think we're ready to like put that hand raise or email out to a group. What size should that group be? Sounds like 100 is the answer. So that's the message that will probably go out today. Okay. And then the other takeaway is really to just go back and to follow the process from the sheet and to wait until the end for pricing.
That's great. Thank you, Melissa, for sharing that. I appreciate that. And thank you all for tuning in either live or on the replay. I hope this was helpful for you. Feel free to tag Melissa below in the replay and thank her for sharing this, because she did this of her own free will and in a new community. So thank you, Melissa, for being brave and doing that. This is so helpful to so many people. I know it is. And your work is helpful for so many people because you're helping busy moms and dads spend more time with their kids. And yeah, get the books done, but the real important part is spend more time with the family. And you've opened a door to make that possible. So thank you, Melissa. Please keep up your good work.
Thank you.